guys, my name is CBC. I'm the founder and owner of Indalum Naturals. I'm a natural hairstylist, dreadlock specialist, a self-taught makeup artist, a qualified facilitator, also a content creator. So the reason for this video, I made a post a few days ago about mental health, and I did mention that one day we will sit down and have conversations around healing journey, my healing journey. And so today is going to be the first episode to many, and I would want us to unpack gender-based violence trauma regarding the victims or people that are closer to the victims. And having had to go through the experience with my late mom, I would really love to have everyone in my journey for healing. And sitting next to me is Nosipuro, who I have invited to be part of my healing journey, and just gonna give us a short brief of who she is.
Thanks, Ma. So who am I? My journey, I guess, with Usma has started truly in what she's an expert in the hair business. I'm a big lover of taking care of myself, and one of the journeys was the whole natural hair process. And I think falling in love with your salon and just how you managed everything. And I think I'm a very tough customer. Kalimbuza, what's going on? Why are you doing this now? And she just was so open to sharing her passion and love with how she was treating my hair. And I think it's been since 2014, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a very long journey. It's a very long journey, but we actually only connected, I think, truly in the last year. I think 2020 brought about a lot of unexpected relationships. And I think just like when you sit at the bar and the barman is your therapist, the salon chair is the same, where we get to have heart-to-heart conversations as women in a space, and we speak about who we are, what we're going through. And I think 2020 opened up a lot of opportunities for us to share our hearts and our healing journeys. Who am I besides a customer and a client, and I have an appointment on Saturday? Who am I? I'm Nosipuro Mkhize, and I think one of the biggest passions I have in life is being a part of conversations around purpose and around healing. And when Usma shared her post around her journey and where she is right now in the healing part of the trauma journey, I remember sending her a DM saying, I'm so proud of her, because we've had so many behind the scenes conversations as she's doing my hair. And I said, I would love to be a part of your journey. And I think my role in this, and my role generally, is facilitating the conversation. I don't have all the answers. You are the one who actually has all the answers, because it's your journey. And the only thing that I can do is to hold the space for you to have the conversation, challenge you on a couple thoughts, and I hope it's good challenges. If they're not, please throw it right back. And I think one of the most beautiful things is that as you heal, I heal.
Yes. And everyone else at home heals.
Everyone else heals, and I think that's what we're trying to create here, is a space where we start the conversation, and I hope you continue the conversation. Why do I believe I'm qualified to actually have this conversation with you? I think I'm qualified because God has placed me here. And I think He's the great qualifier of all things. God has placed me here. My journey has allowed me to be in this space with you. I'm currently on a coaching accreditation journey also, and I think my definition for the journey of coaching that I'm on is to facilitate spaces of thinking, facilitate spaces of healing, and facilitate spaces of growth. So I really hope that for you, this is what you need to actually unlock.
Yes.
We are. So thank you. So I just want to say thank you for bringing me into your personal space. Okay, so now that we've had our introductions, I think one of the first questions that I have for you, which I think probably someone else may have, with you taking us on your healing journey with you, and being vulnerable, which vulnerability is a strength, by the way. What is it that you desire whoever is listening, watching, to walk away with this first episode?
So, my first episode, I wanted us to unpack where the trauma originates from. And I think I was fortunate enough to kind of spot or to kind of identify where the trauma was or where the trauma is currently. So, my biggest trauma is having to witness gender-based violence with my mom. So I think it started at an early age. So I grew up I was raised by my grandmother.
Okay.
And then according to my understanding, my mom gave me away to my grandmother. And she stayed where she stayed, and then I stayed with my grandmother. And me growing up having to understand, why did you give me away? And part of those conversations I would have with her every time I visit her. But every time I visit her, there will be physical episodes going on with the boyfriend. Yes. So my mom wasn't blessed with the right partners in her life when she was still alive. I think my father was the only man that hasn't had laid his hands on her. But my younger brother's father laid hands on her and going forth. And I think victims don't understand the impact or the trauma that these physical fights have on their kids or their siblings or the family members that gets to witness all these fights. And I think part of me trying to understand why always in these relationships was also trying to reach out to her as a mother to love me, because part of that also felt like she wasn't loving me. Why would you give me away? You don't love me. And I think in 2018, when I got them to sit down with the psychologist and try and unpack why, she said to me, you have all the rights to go back and ask her at this age now that you're more wiser, you've grown. Ask her, why did she leave you? Why did she give you away? And going back to her and ask her why, I think I kind of got to understand that in life we make personal choices that sometimes we can see that these choices will have an impact on our kids. So we'd rather have these kids out of the way so that we carry on with these decisions that we have that we can't now leave behind. I think her choosing to be in those situations where there was physical fights, there was drinking and all of that, she didn't want me to witness that. She didn't want me to be part of that life that she had. And she had to give me away. But now, the trauma of now being grown up and then having to visit those childhood traumas, for me it was too overwhelming at one point. And I think there was a period in 2018 where women were just killed left, right and center. And that triggered. It triggered a lot of emotions that one day I remember I didn't want to get out of bed. I cried myself to sleep. My then ex-boyfriend said to me, I don't know what's going on with you. You're just crying. I don't know what's happening. And then he called my grandmother. He said, I'm not sure what's happening. But she's just crying, man. I'm trying to ask her what's happening. She's just not answering. She's just crying. And I remember my grandmother said, no, bring her. And I think that's how I got to get out of bed. And then when I got home and then I explained that all these traumas and killings of women happening on social media, it's triggering me. I'm kind of asking myself, my mom is going through the same, and what's going to happen if one day actually someone takes her life away? So yes, this is what I want us to unpack.
Smile, you've said a lot. And if I can just pick on a few things, which I hope, as with the next episodes later, we can focus on those things as they stand alone. And I think one of them, you spoke about your mom giving you to Ugogo to be raised. And only later on in life did you understand what her purpose at that point was, to make sure to shield you away from what she was going through. But at that point when you were being given to Gogo, you interpreted it as being given away. Why are you leaving me behind? Why upisana nami, basically? And that in itself is a space of trauma. Then you mentioned that the times when you were visiting Umawako, you witnessed the gender-based violence within her relationships at that time. That in itself is another trauma. Then you also mentioned the fact that because your mom never had stable relationships throughout her lifetime, which means you experienced her in different spaces and different relationships, which then goes back to you a sense of no stability. That is another trauma. So there are a number of things which you picked up on, and I think one of the other beautiful things you picked up on was 2018 you seeked help. So that is a whole other episode of how do we get to that point and what it means to be at that point, and then how we navigate that. So that's another episode also. But I think one of the first things that I want us to, because we're still in the how we got you, who are you, understanding you in order to understand the journey. And I want to take us back to you being a little girl, because I think one of the things that we're starting to understand, and as SSE woke, we're starting to understand is that as adults, we're still the little kids inside who are just now in fully grown bodies, who are functioning as adults. But Mrs. Shalaphansi, with ourselves, we realize that we're actually still little kids who are actually trying to navigate this world, but although we never had the tools back then, our adult lives are upside down. And the journey of healing really is going back, like you said, finding out where it started, so that you can heal that space, so that you are a better adult at the end of the day. And I want us to go there. And I hope you're ready to go there. And I think the best way to start is take us through a day when you're at home, Nogogo, trying to understand where is mom. What are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you smelling? Yeah.
So going back, I remember this one episode. It just stays with me. It stays with me. I think it was around 7, if not 8. Sasiyovakashela ugogo with my mom from where she stays, and we took a taxi, and then there was this one guy uhlala nabo mama, but Gibo, same area with ugogo, so sasihambe sonke. And while on the taxi, and I think we were closer to stop sign as Sasohlika khona.
Yeah.
And my mom saw one of her friends, Mapandle, and then Memeza, what's wrong? You know? And then she got off. She said to this guy, when you get to the next stop where we're supposed to get off, please wait for me with her and the legs. So she got off, and then we got to the stop sign with the guy, and then we waited for her.
Yeah.
And she never showed. So the guy said to me, because your mom is close by and she was gonna come and get you, let me just leave you here. And then carry on with my destination. She'll come and get you.
Yeah.
I remember I think it was around 7, 8 at night. I was still standing there.
Imani, when did you get off the taxi? What time was that?
It was still probably around 4, 5 in the afternoon. So I waited there, and it got dark. I was still waiting with my jolsaras, my bags, and these 2 boys came. And they asked me, you've been standing here. They were little kids now. You've been standing here. We are happy. You know? And I was like, I'm still waiting for my mom. You know? And they went to some house to go ask for help. And they came with this older guy. And then he said, no, I'm the counselor. I will take you in, and then tomorrow we'll go to, because you said you were going to your grandmother. We'll go to your grandmother tomorrow. And at that point, it's me now trusting strangers to take me in, because my mom didn't show up. We then went in, and I remember They dished up for me, I ate, they gave me space to sleep. And then in the morning, so that older guy and I think he's a friend or a family member.
Yeah.
So there was 2 meals now. We're like, okay, so hamba, and then I said, okay, sure. We left. So on our way to my grandmother's place, because it was in the morning, schools were open, so there was school kids that passing by.
Yeah.
I spotted my uncle.
Yeah.
I said, I know this one. He's my uncle. Yeah. And then the guy asked the bro, do you know this child? And he said, yes, I know, he's my sister's daughter. And then I said, okay, we are taking her to Guinea. Can you give us an address? So he did. We went there. I remember when we got there, Gogo was busy with laundry.
Yeah.
But she was surprised that
Yeah.
so that's when the guys explained to Gogo, would say, ngubani cancel and simthole stop sign. So simlethile. And Gogo thanked them and they left. Yo, she went crazy after.
Yeah.
She went crazy. And then she said, I know where she went. She said, let's go. We went back to the same area.
Yeah.
So this was 2 different locations, but they were closer to each other.
Yes, yeah.
So Lady is on Refale, Lady is on Swaneville. So we went back. She went to her sister, Ukoko. She went to her sister.
Okay.
And when she got there, we found her there. So Usiska Koko has a daughter now, of which they were the same age.
Yes, okay.
So apparently they went partying together and they came back and then they slept at my granny's sister's daughter. So when we got there, we found them chilling. They were chatting about how yesterday was. She was like, Open. She said to me, wait outside. She said, Open. And then she was on some, no, I left her with this guy's name. No, Bandani at the stop sign, so I saw to Hambina. Gogo lost it. Because I was screaming, what's again? That's when I told her, actually, the guy that you left me with, he actually left me at the stop sign because he had an impression that you were going to come back and get me. So I was picked up by other people and then they made me sleep at their place and then we all went to Gogo. And I think that was the start of many of moments from that. Gogo was like, nope, I'm taking this kid.
Yeah.
Now that I was older, I went back to that moment and I'm trying to figure out how did she become that person in her life at that moment. And I remember asking my aunt
Yeah.
before I was in. She then told me Gogo was an aggressive person. She used to kind of protect her at some point, but she was overdoing it.
Yeah.
She was physical as well.
Okay.
So that kind of created the personality that she then had. The moment she had the chance to run away from home, she did.
Yeah.
Because she didn't like how she was raised at home. Of which now it makes sense why she then gave me away. So from that day, you go, what's not and then you'll keep visiting her if you want to. But now, I think Gogo had changed now. She was a different person from when she was the Kulusuma. She was less aggressive, even though the aggressive was there, but I think I turned out differently. And I think mom's experience made me turn out differently because I didn't want to be like her.
Yeah.
Most of the time I kept reminding myself that I'm not going to be like my mom. And I know there's 2 of us. My brother, Wakuliso, female Kababaki.
Yes.
Because the father was abusive. But I think the father got arrested, and then that's when she moved from him to another relationship. Of which was then worse. Worse than the previous. Because the previous, I didn't get to see anything, but there was times where I would see her with blue eyes, but I didn't have to witness the fights. But now the relationship that she then jumped onto was the worst thing ever. I think they were together for like 20 years.
Wow.
20 years. And I think the guy was older than my mom. And I think they met when my mom was still young.
Yeah.
So it was like a tight relationship. I don't understand how, but yeah, it was a tight relationship. And I think they broke up 3-4 years ago.
That's a lot you said. And including your shoulder, and I can even see you trying your best not to cry.
Yeah, guys, sessions. No.
But I want us to sit there for a bit. And the reason I want us to sit there for a bit is because in this journey of healing, and I know I am one of those. So I'm not because I'm an expert in this, but because I'm an expert because I too experience it, but not an expert in a clinical solution aspect. I want us to sit in it because I think one of the disservices we do ourselves is that when we are asked those questions and those memories are triggered, and we use the words, it's heavy and it's painful and it's sore, but we don't sit in it. We don't allow ourselves to feel the emotions that happened in that time and what those emotions feel like today. We don't allow ourselves to see each person separately. I mean, in that memory that you've just conjured up, those people who took you in, those were beautiful people. Abantu who understood that there was a need here that needed to be fulfilled, and they fulfilled it. Jobanje Osho, you trusted strangers. And I think in our lives, we do have those people who are those strangers who actually give us a lifeline at that point in time. But we brush over izinto, and we don't realize that God gave us moments of good, even in the trauma. And I think that's part of the process of healing, is understanding that both can live at the same time. Pain and joy can live in the same space. And this is how we balance ourselves out. I think sometimes we get so caught up either in the pain that we don't see the joy, or we get so caught up in the joy that we forget the pain. And then we just keep doing life, and then 5 years later you get smacked by something, like how you saying 2018, 2019, when all the GBV violences were happening, it smacked you in the face. And you were a woman down,
I went back and I was like, whoo, what's happening? What's happening?
So that's the thing, and I think one thing we need to also know, and we know healing isn't a straight line. Kunezinto that you're going to come across which will knock you. And you're going to have days where it's an amazing day, where the journey is going well. And I think we need to start owning that. I think we need to start understanding that that is part of the process. If it wasn't messy, then something's wrong. And I think we need to know that it's okay. Some days it is over right and I've got this on lock. And some days I won't be able to get out of bed. But both are beautiful processes. And so to go back to what you've just told us, you've told us what happened. What were you feeling? Because I think that's something that I know myself. It's taken my 35 years, and only in the last 5 actually have I started to truly just understand that I have a ton of different emotions in me, and they all have space within me. But we need to embrace them and help them. So thinking of Usma as a 7-8-year-old in that moment, what was she feeling?
Sure. I think I was graded differently because in my childhood experiences, I've always been a person that understands. Okay, I can understand, it's okay. I understand, it's okay. Until, 2018 hit me very hard. But I think at that point, Spa was, I think I was also shocked with type of woman, and I don't know what was happening or how the emotions were, but all I know is I was also shocked with where she is. And when Ukoko said, I'm going to take you in, I kind of understood, because also I could see the moments where she would go out partying and she engaged me, and I think it made sense. It was okay. It's not like because we look after me to enforce her, as opposed to my where she would leave me when whenever she wanted to leave me.
Yeah.
And I think at that time, because I was still young, I think kids at that age, they don't really know how to put things together.
Yeah.
But even though they can see that things are happening, but they can't reason why things are happening. And I think growing up, I just wanted to be next to my mom.
Yeah.
So I would then say to God, no, I'm gonna go visit her. It's
Yeah.
fine. Even though every time I move things would happen. And I'll come back home, and they'll go, oh, the band of it,
Yeah.
no boyfriend. And I remember, I think age 12, 13, my second goes one.
Yeah.
And then there were times when so young Varshale. That's what my bank email takes over.
Yeah.
And because I had school for a day, I would be forced to walk. So I'd have to walk back home. I remember this one time I walked, I think I left there at around 6.
Yeah.
And distance, it's like you would have to use a taxi.
Yeah.
So it's quite a distance. Probably like 45 minutes to an hour walking.
Oh wow. Okay.
But driving is 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I walked and then it got dark while I was still on the way. I remember ngasuka from the side of the road ngangena phakathi emgwaqweni ngahamba on the white line.
Why?
Because that area la sendifike khona isuka amahlathi. So ngasihamba phakathi endleleni and these cars were hooting. I just didn't care. All I didn't want to do was to walk on the side of the road because I was fearing it would heave.
Yeah.
And I even changed the way I was walking. I was dressed up in my school uniform, luckily I was wearing pants. I changed how I was walking. And I wanted to look more like I was a boy than I was a girl. So yeah, I walked home. I think I got home around past 8 or 9. My feet were swollen, Gogo was angry. And there was nothing that she could have done or that she could do because every time I ate in school holiday or every time I wanted to see me. We need to go in your hand, and I think she didn't have the power to stop me.
Yeah.
Because I think to her, she wanted me to see, or she wanted me to do what I wanted to do. Because every time I said, I probably didn't feel like it would be like she's depriving me of seeing my mom.
Yeah.
She would say, okay, hand back. And I think it got to a point where I stopped going anymore. That's it. Every time I knew it,
Yeah.
and since but there was that envy even after I stopped visiting my mom. She would come probably on December 10th.
Yeah.
There was envy throughout the year. I would like to see my mom walking in. Sometimes that time didn't go. So going back to the 8-7, I can't really say how I was feeling, but probably there was me being scared or me being frustrated. Stop sign.
Yeah.
And yes, guys, I had a very childhood. My childhood was very busy, man.
Yeah.
Busy. Won't do it. Only one person in my mom. Not in I wanted to her to be there for me every time. And I was fortunate to go was there.
Yeah.
Even though situation at home wasn't well, like financially.
Yeah.
And I was blessed with the gift of doing people's hair. So I started doing hair at the age 9, but I had my first paying customer at the age of 10. So that kind of came in handy. Like I said, I don't understand their situations. So also now having clients that will pay me, this is the kind. Sometimes I go to the school trips.
Yeah.
And luckily, bright. So some of the trips, they don't have visa for free. It's a school trip based on education, and you need it. So therefore, I fire in a hand.
Yeah.
Also because I was a very participating learner. I think also me deciding what what kind of person I was going to be came from that experience.
Yes.
So I was a very participating in school because I felt like if I sit in school, all these emotions are going to come back and people are going to see it in real life in general. So I was playing all these sports at school, I was dancing. Hey, in schooling, you know, because I wanted to hide the emotions. That was the only way I would be able to skip your kids.
Yeah.
And also just paying attention to my schoolwork was also me trying to run away from all the experiences that I was feeling at the time.
You know, you mentioned something which is a topic, a whole other topic for another day. This default reaction that we have as, and I think I cannot speak for other races, I can only speak for us black women. I think that we have as black women is that Joba Usho, while your world is chaotic, you all of a sudden became a shining star. And you used your work, your school, your achievements to ignore your trauma. And that is a whole other topic for another day on the coping mechanisms that we start to put into place in order for us to just be functioning human beings in the trauma that we find ourselves in as just black women.
Definitely. I think in the black communities, you know, anything that's got to do with mental health, it's like a taboo. Like, you are taught at an early age, you have to be strong. Our cards, you have to understand. As needs, understand. And I think at that moment, you know, Uba, you don't understand that it's okay. But what I found interesting is we have different personalities, so okay, as a black community, and unfortunately, some of us are surviving in those situations. We tend to find his way out. So ultimately, because I was fortunate to be gifted with the gift that I had, that I focused on it. Would be your necessary unlike if Bengi chooses, you know what, I'm gonna go panda out there, or I'm gonna actually be like my mom, friendly, and all of that. So they don't survive that phase where things go bad in life. And you meet them one day and you wonder what happened. And I get to from the outside. You don't know what really happened to that person. And you can physically see she went through the
most. And you mentioned, I think one of the so I'm very big on, if I decide to do something, I equip myself with all the information. And healing journey is one of those. I'm deciding that I wasn't created to live as a broken being. Therefore, how do I heal? Which means I equip myself with all sorts of things, and conversations is one of them, because I think one of the things we need to really shout out loud, you're not in this alone. And I think that sometimes when we're in our traumas and we're in our things, we're in this, and you don't seek out and you don't have the conversations. But I think the biggest thing that you've just said is, you said, what happened to you? And I think that's the first thing we need to start changing as a conversation when we talk about trauma and healing. You ask the question, what happened to you? Not unje, because and think that you just kind of popped out the womb and you decided this is this is the person I'm going to be. And the moment we change that narrative, and Oprah said this in that book that she wrote, What Happened to You, is because when you ask the question, what happened to you, you start to see people differently. Because you start to realize, and I have this conversation with a lot of people, that the way we view the world, and the way we react to the world, and the way we, however, to the world, is through the lens of our brokenness, is through the lens of our trauma. So, and we all do it in different ways. Me now, I've got the perfection lens, I've got the control lens, I've got the fear lens, I've got the anxiety lens, but those are the lenses which I see the world. So the problem may be the same for all of us, but how we see it is based on the lens, the trauma lens that we see through. And think of it as Ugo and they're cloudy, and whatever that cloudiness is. And healing is about taking into our which is going to wipe that cloudiness away, and you start to see the world differently.
Totally.
Yeah. And I guess one of the, going back to you saying, Ultina, you were in Ghana, you just understood. And I totally get that. Because when you're in a situation, when I think of how I grew up, when you think of the situation that you find yourself in, you decide, okay, and I was the kid, and I've got siblings, but my reaction to the situation was solution-based, was, okay, we're gonna be the perfect child so that we don't add to whatever's going on here. But all you know is that it's not right. And I think that's another topic for another day, the conversations that our parents never had with us about what was going on. And how do we then, moving forward, start to have conversations for us who are moms, have conversations with our kids of what's going on. Obviously to a level that doesn't understand what's going on. But I think one of the things as a kid, you just see stuff.
And you understand.
And it's traumatic because you can feel it within you. No, something's not right here. But because one being you don't question about that. So you don't have the opportunity to even ask for that. Two, even if you have the opportunity, because you don't have the language to express even yourself. Or the only emotions you have is happy and sad, because those are the only ones we know. You don't have the I feel deserted. You don't have the I don't feel seen. You don't have all of that language. But I think we were also saying one of the other things also is that we can have the conversation with our parents, but our parents have their own traumas.
Yes, that they
went through, which has made them people that they are. So the moment usumbuza wena umzali ukuthi what's going on, if they themselves have never been on any healing journey, have had any conversation, they are unable to give us the answers that we need because they themselves are biased. And when you are asking them, it's like we have a challenge.
Yes.
And the response you get is defense and not necessarily. So, and I think this is a beautiful space where let's start the conversations.
Because I remember when I got an opportunity to ask her about her relationships, I could see she was holding things up. I guess now she went through a trauma in her life that she wasn't able to speak about it with someone. That she decided I'm going to build walls around myself, and if anyone gets to ask me these questions, I'm going to defend myself. You know, and it was, for me, it was heartbreaking to see her at that point in her life where she couldn't reason why she was staying in those relationships. And being an understanding child, or being a child that sought help outside, it kind of prepared me for moments when I was going to ask her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also me asking her, it was me asking her in a soft manner, just to give her space and allowance to open up to me. And unfortunately she couldn't reason. She just said, and saying she right mind. But you could see she wasn't right. And probably if she had the opportunity to go back and speak to her mom, probably would have triggered something else with her mom as well. Because now I feel like it's like a generational curse, and it's passed on from one point to another. And it also goes back to how we don't deal with things. Somehow we pass them. And we will have a topic one day about a relationship when you get passed on is indoor. How you deal with your own relationships and spaces that you create.
And Sma, the one thing I do want to say is, and you made mention of as a kid, when you just wanted your mom. And I just want to echo out to you, and I see this with my own kids. So I've got 3 babies. What I see within them is that the only language they know as children, before the world taints them, and the world being us, being parents, the first world in their lives, is all they ever want is love. We were created for love at the end of the day. And for you, therefore, wanting uma wakho, even though awuboni ukuthi kwenzakalani, was the perfect reaction that you could have had at that point. And I think it's another topic for another day, being parents, to truly understand ukuthi our own unresolved traumas,
Yes.
the effects that they have on our children, and how it then shapes them. Because you made mention, ukuthi, you were so clear, ukuthi, I don't want to be like my mom.
At
But
an
at an early age. But there's an unhealthy, I don't want to be like my mom, and there's a healthy, I don't want to be like my mom. And part of the healing journey is understanding when you make that statement in your life, where it was coming from. Because if it's coming from an unhealthy, I don't want to be like my mom, there is anger, there is resentment, there is all of that. Abandonment, depression, all of that wrapped up in that. And then the healing version of I don't want to be like my mom is because you've understood who you want to be like. But that's a journey of figuring out who you want to be and who you are and what healing means for you. But that's another topic for a whole. It's in English, isn't it?
It's ning. And I know it's Zokoto Sozukoka.
Yeah.
Someone out there, you know, they might take away from these conversations, and it might also help them deal with their unresolved matters, you know. Help them go back to their inner child and try to figure out what really happened and deal with everything that I have decided to, you know what, these emotions, I'm going to box them, I'm not going to talk about them, I'm not going to face them, and this is me now, you know? Because trust me, however you find yourself in a position where you're like, this is me now, there's always going to be something that's going to trigger that person that you're trying to forget.
Yeah.
And I just hope these conversations will help you go back and try and have a clean slate. Now let's start afresh, let's unpack everything. Let's deal with these things step by step. Obviously it doesn't take one day. I don't know how many times I've wanted to have these conversations. And I feel like everything happens at its own time. You know, you don't time things because you're gonna wake up one day and feeling sorry for yourself because you think, oh, when I'm daily these kinds of things.
Yes, that's true.
So I feel like everything has its own time. I think it had to take me my mom's passing for me to sit down and be like, okay, let's unpack. Which baby girl, after you passed on, because a lot goes on.
But you're so true when you say, don't put a time factor on yourself. Put a goal. The goal is healing. Because I always tell people, I'm 35 this year. It's taken 55 years to build the issues within me. To think it's going to be resolved in 6 months, I'm setting myself. It's probably going to take me 6 months to just identify, just to locate. Oh, that's where that's from. And then start the journey of that. And I think the other thing also that we don't realize is that different stages in our life trigger different things. So me being a mom, there are different things which have been triggered through my children. And I have a toddler who's testing every single fruit of the spirits that you know the whole, oh Lord Jesus. But he's triggering things in me at 35, being a mom to a 2-year-old, that wouldn't have never been triggered when I was 30 and not married and not being a mom. And even being married is triggering things in me which would have never been triggered if I stayed single. So I think that's the thing which you also need to just even demystify and take the shame away from it. Take all the drama away from it. Is that healing is a journey. I'll feel it. And you are tired. And I think when we just embrace that, you know what, guys, a lot has happened to us. And like you also mentioned, some of the stuff was passed down to us. Singers, but it was passed down to us. And there's even scientific aspect to each trauma even changes the way that you just even think and function. And Mina, the one thing I can say about trauma, for me personally, there was a time in my life where I had terrible, terrible stomach pains. But from a medical, if you go to the doctor, I check it, but because of the trauma in my life at that time, and to a point where it was debilitating, where it was just, and I remember a couple of years ago, I was just like, and I remember because for real, and it triggered that, because there was a time in my life where because of what was going on. As a child, as an 8-year-old, I was highly stressed. So it even changed my physical and health aspect. And that's another topic for another day.
Yes.
You know, Sma, we've said a lot today. And as we're talking, topic for another day. But you know, first I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your courage of actually starting this conversation. Yes, it's just you and I sitting on this couch here, but as we're putting it out to the world, I know the hope that we both have is that it's going to start conversations. So as we wrap up today's episode, I just want to say thank you. We are writing that list of next episode,
and it just keeps flowing.
And it keeps flowing, which just shows, which is testament and just shows that evidence. There's a lot of unpacking. I always say, in life, suitcase, okay, suitcase underneath, and by the time you get to that point where you say I'm healing, bag lady, as Erica Badu would put it. You know,
bags lady.
And the healing journey is about dropping all those bags and then picking one suitcase. I see food. Let's see what's inside. Let's unpack. Let's figure it out. If there's anything worth repacking, because some suitcases are worth repacking because they have beautiful things inside. I see baggage, but now it's a healthy suitcase. I see that. So I just want to say thank you for that, and thank you for asking me to be a part of this journey with you. Thank you for opening up your heart, for opening up your vulnerability with it, and I'm looking forward to see what unfolds from all of this. But yeah, you know what you would like to share with everyone.
Firstly, thank you for allowing me into your space with my bags, you know, and just to agree to help me unpack all my bags. And there's a lot of emotions going on with it, and I think it takes a lot for allowing someone to come pour in their emotions onto you and try and help them navigate those emotions. And yeah, no, the first episode went well. It kind of opened ideas for other episodes that we're going to have, but all I can say is from this episode I hope people at home are able to revisit their childhood.
Yes.
You know, visit your inner child, go back to the moments where you can remember things about your life, you know, those moments that we decide to shut them down because they cause us pain. Go back to those moments and try and not relive them, but to try and acknowledge that they were there for a reason. Yeah. And probably they're going to add stones into the house that you're trying to build, you know? And forgive those moments where you're not understanding what was happening, and forgive those people also that caused pain to that inner child. Me deciding to face my mom to ask her, why were you in these relationships? It was me trying to now go back to my inner child and say, we know you were traumatized by the physical fights. Now let's go back. Let's understand why those women chose to be in those situations. And yes, see you on the next episode as we unpack the traumas of gender-based violence in my childhood. Thank you once more.